All right, so this is the Morganize podcast. We're breaking down political issues that are relevant to our lives that sometimes are tricky to understand, but we should know about. And I want to talk today about something that is going on in the state house. Previous episode, we talked about how, we have different levels of government, right? We've got the federal government, Congress, but at the state legislative level, we have two chambers. We've got the Senate, we've got the House. And there is something that has already made its way through the Senate that's going to be moving through the Ohio State House that is deeply, deeply problematic. And it is a resolution that is going to change the way that citizen-led ballot initiatives work in our state. Specifically, Republicans in the state Senate, the state legislature, are trying to make it so that instead of only needing what's called a simple majority, or a little over 50% of the population to vote for a ballot initiative for it to become law, change the Ohio Constitution, they're trying to say you're now going to need 60%. Big change. It's a big, big difference. And essentially what that would do, and we'll get into this a little bit more later, is enshrine minority rule in the state of Ohio. And this other thing that they're trying to move is because you're going to need to vote if you want this, to be the new law of the land, that we're going to have a special election in August to determine whether or not this becomes the new threshold for citizen-led ballot initiatives. So I want to break this down a little bit because, as hopefully folks know, but again, unless you're paying attention or have the time, bandwidth to pay attention, you might not be able to really realize that none of this stuff is ever an accident. So what's going on? Why this? Why now? And especially, and this is another thing to note, we have a lot of really serious things going on. So that was one of my first things when you see something about what really is like a procedural change to how ballot initiatives work. Like, wait a second, which of us wakes up in the morning and is like, you know what I need my elected officials to focus on today? The threshold for citizen ballot initiatives. I'm guessing you, like I, have never woken up and thought about that as the top issue of our day. What are we thinking about? Scared to death that I might get sick and not afford whatever healthcare treatment I'm going to need. Worried about how much prices are increasing overall on everything. Concerned about how my aging parents going to be able to travel around Central Ohio with no transportation infrastructure and I have a full-time job. I don't know about you, but these are things I actually do wake up thinking about every day. I have never woken up and thought about a citizen-led ballot initiative threshold percentage, simple majority versus 60%. But the Republicans of Ohio are. So why are they? They are because of abortion. I'm going to be super direct about that. This change that they're proposing has everything to do with abortion. How do we know? So to back things up a little bit, last summer, as you may or may not be aware, Roe v. Wade, which was the Supreme Court case that, essentially enshrined the right to be able to access an abortion in the United States, was overturned. The Supreme Court overturned that. And so that opened up the floodgates for states like Ohio to be able to implement what has been known as the heartbeat bill, which is essentially banning abortions in the state of Ohio. Lots of confusion ensues. Different lawsuits filed trying to, challenge whether the heartbeat bill would be implemented, all of this. So much confusion that you might recall we even had the very, very tragic situation of a 10-year-old who had been raped that was unclear about whether or not they would even be able to access healthcare in Ohio in that situation. They had to travel to Indiana, right? So it's like serious, serious consequences to the abortion ruling that came down from the Supreme Court last summer. And so what a lot of states did in reaction to that is like, and including here in Ohio, is like, okay, we need to make sure that we are protecting the right to an abortion in our state constitution. And in order to do that, we're going to follow the lead of other states. So like Kansas did that. They were able to pass an abortion ballot initiative last August that created that protection to that right, given that the federal level, the national government was saying, hey, you states, y'all figure it out, right? And so folks got to work, organizers, doctors, patient advocates, and they're saying like we need our ballot initiative in Ohio, and we're going to put this to the voters because the reality is like over 60% of the people living in the state of Ohio actually do support the right to an abortion. So let's get this ballot initiative out there. Let's make sure that the will of the people is heard, right? And because that is the case, that the majority of people do support this, there's a pretty good shot that this is going to pass. So, they're like, they got the ballot initiative out. They got the language that you actually need to get approved by the Attorney General to begin collecting signatures. I want to call out that language specifically because there's sometimes back and forth about what exactly this petition is saying. This petition saying every individual has a right to make and carry out one's own reproductive decisions, including but not limited to decisions on contraception, fertility treatment, continuing one's own pregnancy, miscarriage care, and abortion. And so let's be real. I mean, the hill to climb to actually get this passed, even, despite this level of public support, is huge. And we talked about this in a prior episode too. You need to get, and the organizers of this that include like Planned Parenthood, ACLU, you're going to have to get over 400,000 signatures from people in the state of Ohio to put this up to a vote this November, right? And they have to get those signatures by July. So it's a lot of people that have to say, we want to be able to vote on this. That's even before we actually end up voting. And so what are the Republicans doing here by changing the threshold and also creating this August special election? They knew they had to move quickly because the organizers of this ballot initiative that would enshrine a right to abortion are going to be putting this to the voters November 2023, assuming they get those over 400,000 signatures. And the Republicans are trying to change the rules, cheat, lie. It's anti-American, anti-democracy, this whole shift of, okay, hey, you people that are collecting signatures for this ballot initiative, you thought in November you were only going to need to get that simple majority, 50% plus one. Joke's on you. You're going to need to get 60% of the people to vote to support this. So again, 60%. That means that if we're not able to reach that threshold, we have like 40% of the people of the state of Ohio that are dictating the way the rest of us are going to live, right? And in order to make that change before November, they had to create a special election in August, create a special day that we would go and vote to make sure that that threshold change was in effect before November 2023 when the abortion ballot initiative is going to be voted on. Wild. How much does it cost to do this August special election? This is the other wild thing is the Republicans a few months ago just decided that August special elections were a tremendous waste of money, resources to the tune of $20 million every time they put on one of these August special elections. And, that got me thinking a little bit about $20 million. What could we do with $20 million in the state of Ohio? And it turns out that actually every free school lunch in Ohio costs about $2.50. And so with $20 million, we could provide over 8 million lunches for kids in the state of Ohio. But instead, we have a Republican state legislature that has decided to waste that money on a special election that is just going to try to block this abortion ballot initiative. And again, I mean, this is this is not democracy. I was recently on this local political talk show, and they always have, one Democrat, one Republican on these shows. And the guy who was on there representing the Republican perspective on this issue was making this point. And to be clear, the Republicans that show up to these things always have the talking points ready to go because we are living through a national nightmare of the GOP that is just distributing what they want everybody to believe and then spews back to us. And he was making the point, this isn't a big deal, switching from 50% plus one to 60%. That's just the way it works in Congress. We always are governed by the ideal of 2/3 of, each chamber needs to approve on something before it moves forward. And if you don't really pay attention, there's always like this little bit of what they're saying. They're like, maybe that does make sense. Maybe we're all crazy. But no, we're not crazy. And here's why. Because this ballot initiative, a simple majority, has been around since about 1912 in the state of Ohio. It was actually introduced as a way to check the ability for a small number of people in our state to have too much power, right? And so we have to be asking ourselves when Republicans are like, this is just a natural thing to be doing. I mean, why else would we possibly be doing this in spring 2023? Then why haven't you done it over the last 100 years? And the answer is because this has nothing to do with trying to create more democratic procedures. This has everything to do with blocking this specific abortion ballot initiative and limiting healthcare access in the state of Ohio. And I just want to say a couple of things because I know, we all are coming from different places on this issue. I know I've knocked a lot of doors throughout Central Ohio, the state of Ohio, and I remember a conversation I had with a woman just around this time last year. She's an older white woman and knocked on her door. She had seen an ad that, we had done for the campaign. And she was saying, Morgan, I support you. I support that you support abortion access, but it makes me really uncomfortable as an individual. But I know that it's not my place to really say what anybody else is doing. And I was like, yeah, totally hear you. Makes a lot of sense. It's all good. We're all coming from different places, but we have to recognize that this issue, the abortion issue, is about freedom to determine the trajectory of one's life. It is about healthcare, and we are a country that is not a theocracy and beholden to one specific religious point of view. We are a democracy, and that's about taking the views of all the people that make up this place and developing our laws based on the majority of what those people hold to be true. Democracy is under attack right now. Democracy is something that is truly, truly in threat based on these maneuvers that are happening to prevent one of the last bastions of having any political representation for the people of Ohio in our state house with these ballot initiatives. And we all need to be paying attention. So I hope you'll do what you can over the next few weeks. One, to just sign this abortion ballot initiative where they're going to need signatures by July. I'm going to be hosting a signature gathering event to make sure we do what we can to get that effort out, but also make sure the people in your network know that this 50% to 60% threshold move is all about power and control and keeping our state at the bottom of all the measures: education, life expectancy, health, women's pay. And it has nothing to do with moving us to the future. Do what you can, get the word out. Thanks so much.